Joining us now with reaction, Gianno Caldwell, a Fox News political analyst and Chicago native who conducted those illuminating interviews you just saw with the Chicago residents. Illinois State Rep LaShawn Ford and Peter Koanis, a former Chicago police sergeant. Great to have all of you with us. Gianno, I just want to say to you first, I think what you did was so important in talking to the people who live in the most dangerous parts of Chicago. You didn't go up to the fancy neighborhoods. You went to where the people are. So congratulations and thank you for doing that report. It was really important. Gianno, give me the sense from what you experienced, and you experienced a lot growing up. You're from the area.
Yes.
Who are they blaming any one group of people, or are they just looking for solutions at this point?
Well, you know, Laura, today I come with a very heavy heart and a special message for every Chicagoan. Rahm Emanuel, as we know, has been in office since 2011. And since 2011, he's failed. He's failed to keep us safe. He's failed to keep our families safe, our friends, and even out-of-town visitors. My family has personally been impacted by the violence in Chicago. During Memorial Day last year, my little brother was in the car with two of his friends when two men walked up and shot the car 25 times. My little brother thankfully lived, but his best friend, bloodied in his arms, died. Now, considering Rahm Emanuel has been mayor since 2011 and murders have gone up, what we've seen is a mass genocide in the streets of Chicago. The only silver lining I see to a solution in terms of ridding this outside of President Trump coming in is the fact that we got an election that's coming up in the city of Chicago in several short months. And with that being the case, every Chicagoan needs to get out and vote Rahm Emanuel out of office. It's certainly true he didn't pull the trigger. I get that. But his policies and his inaction, rather, has enabled those that have pulled the trigger. You know that because the murders have gone up since he's been mayor.
I want to go to Representative Ford at this point and read for you something that was written a few years ago. Actually, this is a piece that was just written today, excuse me, in the American Thinker. The title of it is, "It's Time to Hold Democrats Responsible for Chicago's Violence." The city's famed violence is all the result of gangs and Democrats being in bed with each other, one hand washing the other. Democratic politicians sidle up to gang leaders for votes and use their thugs as substitutes for their political organizations. They muscle voters to the polls for the Democrats, and anyone who rebels gets a beating. The left benefits, so it gives the gangs what they want. That's Monica Showalter quoting Glenn Reynolds' piece from 2012. Your thoughts on that, given the bloodshed that we've seen, Representative Ford, over the last really several years, even with the modest declines of the last year or so?
Well, I have to say that Chicago is worse than the days of Al Capone. It's the bloodiest city in America, and I have to say that Democrats have to step up. I'm a Democrat, and I'm saying that Democrats must step up. All of the Democrats, all of my colleagues must step up and put politics aside. We must work with President Trump, and we must demand that we get help in the city of Chicago, on the west side of Chicago, and in our south side community so that we can bring safety to all of the communities in the city. There are 77 communities in the Chicago community, and every community is feeling the trauma from the violence and destruction that's happening in the bloody city of Chicago.
Representative Ford, I remember during the campaign that candidate Trump in March of 2016 had a speech scheduled in Chicago, and they had to cancel it because of threats of protest, violence. People say, we don't want you here. I thought that was such a shame because I actually think the more ideas, I mean, obviously the ideas that have been employed have failed. You know, he's done pretty well with the economy. Maybe he could bring some new thinking and some fresh ideas to this current situation. I think it's beyond tragic. I think you are brave as a Democrat for speaking out.
Absolutely.
And at least being open.
That's courageous.
I mean, you are going to get, and I know you've already gotten blowback, and I want to hear from, you know, former police officer in Chicago who tell us the way things are on the street for the police, who have been oftentimes demonized. But he was not allowed to come to Chicago, an American city. That was outrageous. That told me a lot about Chicago back in March of 2016.
You know, less than a year ago, I lost my cousin on the west side of Chicago with his girlfriend in the car. I never told Gianno that, and I haven't told anyone publicly, but they lost their lives in a car with some type of drive-by on the west side of Chicago to leave two kids without parents.
Sergeant Kokonis, unfortunately, you know, it's a horrific story after horrific story, after heartbreak, after parent losing a child. Peter, give us your insights, please.
Well, Mr. Ford's saying the Democrats should step up. They should step out. The problem is we have a Democrat sheriff. We have a Democrat state's attorney, Kim Foxx. We have a Cook County president's Democrat. And what they're doing is reducing bonds, people getting out that commit crimes with guns, and they're giving no bond, an I bond. They're let to walk out. A man walks out after doing an armed carjacking. 2 days later, he does a carjacking again. Now they want to put him on a monitor. You can't do this. I mean, the policemen, they get in a car, they work for 8.5, 9 hours. They get no breaks, they get nothing. You have marchers. You have Al Sharpton. He rented an apartment. He never was here. You have Rahm Emanuel. You know, he promised he's going to hire 1,000 policemen. It's 7 years later, he hasn't hired the policemen. You have marchers that march down Lakeshore Drive. You have marchers that march down to Dan Ryan. They didn't close expressways in Ferguson. The ministers and the false prophets and everything that we have in this city, unfortunately, it comes down to one thing. It's black young men killing black young men. And these two gentlemen talking about, my father was murdered by a gangbanger when in 1969, a 15-year-old kid went into a store and shot him so he could pay for the gun that he used to kill him. So I'm on both sides of the fence. I've been a victim of it, and now I fought against it. You're 100%. You hit it with your opening monologue was just perfect. The Democrats are doing nothing. And I don't care, you get a nonpartisan person running for mayor, you get somebody like Lightfoot or somebody like that actually knows how the system works.
We got to get politics.
You can't let people walk.
Politics have to get out of it. Real common sense solutions. We have to do an hour on this topic because there's so many elements of it. Fantastic panel. I wish we had more time.